We're bringing you breaking news right now from the office of the presidency in relation to appointment and letters handed out to public servants into various government institutions after December 7. There's a directive that's coming from the Chief of Staff right now directing all heads of state institutions to immediately begin processes in annulling all of these appointments that were handed out. Let's try and walk you through exactly what it is that's been coming from the Chief of Staff's office this afternoon. And it reads that consistent with government pronouncement in relation to near end of tenure appointment and recruitment, I wish to bring to your attention that all appointments and recruitments made in the public service of Ghana after the 7th of December 2024 are not in compliance with established good governance practices and principles. That's according to Julius Debra. He's the Chief of Staff. There's a bit more in relation to this has been directed at all heads of government institutions. And it reads that accordingly, all heads of government institutions are hereby requested to take the necessary steps to annul any such appointment or recruitment and submit a comprehensive report on the actions taken to the office of the president by the 17th of February 2025. And he ends by saying that their cooperation in this matter will be highly appreciated. And the 17th will be next week, Monday, is where the Chief of Staff is expected that this comprehensive report will be submitted to the office of the president. It's dated the 10th of January 2025, 10th of February, I should say, 2025, and addressed to all heads of government institutions. And that's the very latest coming from the Chief of Staff, Julius Debra. Alfred Okanse is my colleague here at Media General TV3 on the political desk. The latest that we're getting from the office of the president, and it's consistent, Alfred, absolutely, with the conversations which has characterized the leader to the swearing in, and even during the transition process. We know that this was one of the many things that came up for conversation, and the current government was consistent in stating that they will annul all such appointments.
And rightly so. And as you indicated, this particular conversation started right from when President John Dramani Mahama was declared as president-elect by General Documents and the EC chair. Now, you recall that the moment the transition team started, the joint transition team started meeting, I recall that the second transition team meeting, there was some sort of agreement between the outgoing transition team and the incoming president's transition team. There was a meeting on the 13th of December last year where that agreement was reached that any such recruitments and even payments of contracts, backdating of some contracts and some payments as well, was going to be cleared with the joint transition team.
That became a point of disagreement of some sort, because we know that the Mahama transition team had issued a statement suggesting same, and then the outgoing government's transition team as well issued a subsequent statement that no such decision had been reached to put on hold such payments. Absolutely.
But then again, you would reference that particular 13 December conversation or that particular decision that was taken, which the outgoing Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo transition team indicated that there hadn't been any such agreement. Today, with what we are seeing right now, they make reference to pursuant to certain statements they had made previously. That tells you that they still recognize that there was that agreement that whatever employment or recruitment that was going to be done between 13th of December and now should have been cleared as of the time with the joint transition team. And from what we understand, based on this release, it gives a particular time frame, a period that these recruitments were done. And this is not the first time we are seeing this. In fact, in 2016, and in the early part of 2017, when the then John Dramani Mahama administration handed over to the president-elect Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, this matter came up again, where we saw some recruitment that had been done in the last minute after the 7th of December 2016 election also being reviewed. A number of those recruitments also being reversed or revoked. We're going back to history and seeing things play out in the same manner. But then again, since that communication of the 13th of December, this administration, I'm talking about the John Dramani Mahama-led administration, has been very consistent with their position that all the recruitments done, that's they call it the last-minute recruitments, done after 13th December, were going to be subject to some sort of a review and then also decisions taken on them. And because it was done in bad faith. If you look at the communication that was issued by the then incoming administration's transition team, signed by Phyllis Kwachofosu, the minister in charge of government communications, indicated that they had observed that despite that particular agreement, which the that's outgoing transition team said they were not aware, they had indicated that there was that agreement, and based on that agreement, there had to be some sort of engagement before possible recruitment. Right. They say that had not been done, that had been breached, and so all the recruitments that were done from 13th December until the handing over period was done in bad faith. Right. Now, if you look at how that was qualified, it's not surprising that we're seeing this release from the Chief of Staff. And if you recall, in the first week of President John Mahama assuming office as President of the Republic of Ghana, Julius Debra, the Chief of Staff, issued a directive again detailing a recall and a list of the various persons who have been employed.
I'll hold you there. Let's try and subject what we're seeing right now to Labour, not Labour correspondent, Labour expert Austin Gamez, somebody who's done a lot of conversations in relation to Labour, try and get a sense of what it is that we're seeing. Is this grounded in law? Can a person be relieved of an appointment he received from a state institution just by a directive from the Chief of Staff and no law being quoted? Mr. Game, I appreciate that you could speak to us. I'm sure you've been able to catch a glimpse of this particular directive to the heads of the various state institutions. We know the position of the Mahama administration already, but what we're seeing right now, this approach in terminating these contracts, would you say it's the right approach? Mr. Game, can you hear us? Right, it appears we lost Austin Game. But Alfred, back to the wording of what it is that we've seen. Well, I got the indication that Austin Game has joined us via the telephone lines. Mr. Game, I was asking whether or not the approach being adopted by the Mahama administration in deciding to revoke these appointments and recruitments is in the right direction and falls in favor of the law.
Thank you, my brother. To be honest with you, I think that as a principle, it's normal that we go by the rules of managing the human resource according to the manpower ceiling that we have in various organizations. From what I know in the public and civil service, there's always a manpower ceiling, and you cannot, under any circumstances, not apply properly to the system to enable you to have authority to recruit. So recruitment is not just done because you are a president or because you are just a leader in any organization. It has to go through a process. Now, in this case, like in many other civilized institutions across the world, when you have election, you don't recruit immediately after the election the outgoing government, except that government is taking power from itself, like MPP taking over from MPP. Then recruitment in any form or shape, even that, it does not make economic sense. That's why you have manpower ceiling. You don't go over the manpower ceiling. If you do that, you create financial, imbalance in the system. Now, under the present circumstance, all the people who were recruited immediately after the election, What it means is that you are recruiting people who are supposed to be your favorite for the person who is coming to take office to work with them when he does not know anything about all that. It's not normally done in all countries. Like in America, when you are going, you go before all the people you came with.
Right.
And the new person recruits a new person. But if you want me to talk about specific steps to be taken from an HR point of view.
Right, Mr. Agame, I'll come to the specifics in terms of steps to be taken in dealing with this going forward. But you raise an important point as to the recruitment process into the public service or civil service. For starters, there's no determination based on what we're seeing whether or not these recruitments, which the direction is that they should be revoked, have gone through the right process or not. There's not been a specific determination. That's one. There's an argument that can be made as well for possible recruitment processes which may have started well before the 7th of December and finalized after the elections. If determination has not been made with regards to some of these matters, wouldn't this directive be against persons who've gone through a legitimate process?
Let's assume positively that the recruitment process began even before the election and thereafter. The appropriate thing to do would have been to let the transition team know that we began a process like this and that the people haven't been shortlisted and interviewed by a panel. These are the marking schemes and so forth and so on. We intend giving them appointment letter.
Right.
So we want the blessings of the transitional team. That is the wise approach, even in governance, in good governance.
Right.
That's how it's supposed to be. Unfortunately, it does appear this was not brought to the attention of the transitional team, except that it was sprung on them as a surprise. Maybe that's the reason why there is this approach that is being given to it.
Well, we know that back in December, it's a conversation my colleague Alfred and I have been having in the studio, that there was that back and forth about recruitment and appointment where the Mahama administration had stated quite categorically that proceeding with such recruitment will be an exercise in bad faith. And so perhaps that explains why a month after taking over, they are seeking to have these persons removed from public service.
Well, that is precisely what I was trying to say. Except to add, from purely professional HR point of view, that if to avoid any mischief, as we are known in this country to be sometimes doing, these people are not even 3 months old in the system. So if there is any sort of checks and to ascertain their suitability for the roles they are supposed to be playing, and they are found wanting, what it means is that they cannot qualify to the probationary period to be recruited into the system. So they may not even complete probation, so there will be nothing like politicking, partisan, or whatever connotation they may want to give to it. But I think that there's a process they could easily get the HRs to do, but if they're given that strength from the chief of staff point of view, it's also a very strong position. But I think that these are things that maybe could be done without much fanfare.
Right, Mr. Agame, we'll leave the conversation here. I'm sure we'll pick it up on another platform shortly, but I appreciate that you could provide these immediate thoughts to us.
Thank you. Monsieur True.
Right, that's Austin Game, is a labor expert and analyst and one who's been doing this for quite a while. Alfred, let's try and wrap up this conversation quickly. Different perspectives will come, whether or not this possibly could open up the government to some legal suits from some of these individuals, and all of that. Mr. Game says there's a way out in terms of the probation period being used as a means to have these persons removed from office. I don't know what you make of that quickly.
I think that's a way to go as well. But then again, you also look at the politics of it as well. This decision, you cannot discount the fact that it is also supposed to satisfy the base of the party in government, because already there was that call that, you know, there had been some last-minute recruitments, and so the government had to look into it. That's why on the 23rd of January, this last month, Julius Deborah, who signed this same statement, had tasked the heads of the various government institutions to provide the details of the names that were added to the payroll of those institutions between December 8th and February 23. In fact, that's January 23.
Yeah.
So that they have a full and clear idea of the total number of persons who were employed within that period and were added to the payroll, so that then they would know exactly who they are dealing with. So based on this, that earlier directive, I would want to assume that the chief of staff, through that directive, also got the various heads of the institutions to provide them with the detail of the total number of persons who were employed by the previous administration in that last-minute period. Then, based on their own assessment, they've come out with this directive that we're seeing today, that those employments and recruitments have been rendered null and void.
Indeed, and we're just speaking word that if one such institution, the Bank of Ghana, reports suggest that as many as 200 plus individuals were added after the December 7 elections of 2024. But that's it for us here right now. But there's a bit more details if you go on to our various social media handles, TV3, 3news.com, find it all, the details. The latest is that the Chief of Staff, Julius Deborah, has directed all heads of state institutions to begin taking processes to annul all recruitment that have been undertaken by the previous administration after the December 7 general elections. I mentioned again, there's a bit more if you log on to 3news.com. I am Awena Igbeta.
My name is Alfred Okansi. Join me at 5 p.m. together with British Sedu. It's just 5 p.m. now on 3FM 92.7 for Hot Edition. We're on as well on 3news.com, on TV3 Ghana, on Facebook, and across social media platforms. You get this plus more here across Media Journal platforms. Stay with us. Have a great evening.
아니 7월 24일부터 8월 6일 행정 다 쓰시라고요 좀.
언제 어디서 뭘 먹고